is Lucky Robin, and today I'm going to show you how I make rabbit fried rice. You want to have about 10 cups of cold rice. I like it when it's about 2 days old. I think it works much better when it's 2 days old. Doesn't stick at all at that point. Okay, you'll need some leftover rabbit meat. This is some herb roasted rabbit we had earlier in the week. So I've got about 3 cups in there. This recipe takes about 2 to 3 cups. It's really kind of forgiving. You just use what you got. I've got some mixed vegetables here, about 2 cups worth. You can use your leftovers or whatever. I didn't happen to have any this week, so I'm just using a bag of peas, carrots, and corn. And then you'll need 5 or 6 eggs. I'm using duck eggs, so I'm only using 5 eggs. If I were using chicken eggs, I'd use 6. You'll need some broth. You can use rabbit broth, chicken broth, whatever you have on hand. You can use chicken if you don't have rabbit, that's fine. And then 1 small onion, diced up. You'll need some ginger and some garlic powder. And also some soy sauce and a little oil. Alright, I'm going to make this a little bit differently than how you would make it if you had a wok. Right now I just have the skillet and put a little bit of sunflower oil in the bottom. You can use peanut oil if you have it and you like it, but we don't have any right now. So just heat my skillet to 350 degrees, which would be medium high or so if you're doing it on the stove. If you're doing it in a skillet and not in a wok, this is kind of technically a stir fry since I stir and fry everything, but it's not going to be all added together in the pan simply because the pan is too small. But the end result is the same. So first we start by sauteing our onions in the oil. I don't know, it was probably about a tablespoon of oil, maybe 1.5. Whatever you feel comfortable using. And this just needs to saute for about 5 minutes. You just want it to get soft. You don't necessarily want it to caramelize at this stage, but it's a little more like sweating. If you need to turn the heat down because it starts to caramelize, go ahead and do that. And get back to you when this is ready. Alright, after about 2 minutes, I've turned this down to medium as it was starting to caramelize. And I don't quite want that yet. So that's about 275 degrees. I just don't want them to get, too caramelized. It's okay if they do a little bit. Alright, it's been 5 minutes, and so I'm going to add the vegetables. And these ones are a little icy, so I need to let that ice melt off so this can break apart. So I'm trying to get the ice on the bottom. Where's the bottom of the pan? Let's break up those clumps as the ice melts down. If you don't have leftovers, you don't have frozen. If you have canned, you can certainly put canned in. Canned corn, canned peas, canned carrots as well. You just want the dice to be small. Alright, we're going to turn this back up to 350 degrees. And continue to break up any clumps, if there's any left. I don't know if you can hear it, but my turkey George is just having a conniption fit outside the window. I think he hears my voice. But every time I get up and look, there's nothing going on out there, so unless there's somebody across the street doing something in their yard, he's a very protective watchdog sometimes. Alright, it's going to take about 5 minutes or so, so I will get back to you when that is done. Alright, so this is done, and I just need to transfer it into a bowl, and we'll start on the next stage. Alright, it's time to do the eggs. I put a little more oil in the skillet, and I've got the temperature turned down to 250 because I do not want the eggs to brown. And if you cook the eggs in too hot of a skillet, that's what's going to happen. And then you just scramble. I like to do nice long streaks. And some people will just let this fry in a sheet, and then they'll roll it up and cut it up into strips, and then cut those into smaller strips. But I prefer just a scramble. It's a one less step. You don't have to worry about the bottom getting too brown while the top's still too ruddy. And it's okay if you still have some pieces of carrot or onion in your pan when you do this. If you didn't get them all out. That happens. Nobody's going to care when they eat the finished product. I really like this recipe for using up excess eggs as well when the ducks or chickens are overproducing. Make sure you get these chopped up small from these bigger clumps. You don't need giant clumps in the rice. And when these are almost done, I just put a tiny bit of salt on them. I don't like to season the eggs right at the beginning, as that can make them toughen. Alright, I'm going to turn the heat off just as this finishes up. I want just a tiny bit of moisture left on the eggs, because when you pour them in with the hot vegetables and you pour the hot rice on top, they will finish cooking, and that way they won't dry out. One of the problems with a lot of stir-fried rice is it seems like it's very, very dry. And I don't like that. But I've got a trick to solve that problem as well. Alright, this is about the size clumps you want. So I'll come back to you after I get this out of the way and start on the next part. Alright, so I've got my eggs and my vegetables all together. So I'm just going to stir that up real quick. It'll make it easier to stir it into the rice later when it's evenly distributed early on. I just do this with every step as I go, since it's not going to all end up back in the skillet or in a big wok to be easily incorporated. Alright, I have my skillet on 300 now, and I'm going to put my leftover rabbit meat in. Now, I didn't put any oil in this because I feel like there's enough oil between the eggs and the vegetables already in this recipe, but I need something in here. So I'm putting in, oh, I don't know, about 1/4 of a pint of rabbit broth. And we're basically just warming this. It doesn't really need to be cooked for very long, but we're also adding the seasoning. So this is the last of the old homemade garlic powder. And then start on the new homemade garlic powder. Now I probably put in, oh, a teaspoon's worth of garlic powder and a teaspoon's worth of ginger. And this is just give it more Asian flavors. The herb roasted rabbit had more Italian seasonings, and I want to give it more of an Asian flavor, so the ginger and the garlic will override, and the broth will help to spread the seasoning about all of the meat. So this probably takes about 2 minutes for the meat to get warmed through. You can dice this a lot smaller. I usually have it a lot smaller when I do it for rice, but my husband did me the favor of chopping this up, and this is as small as it got, and I didn't feel like redoing it. So this works just fine. Quite warmed through yet. Probably another 30 seconds or so. Yeah, okay, that's warmed through, so we'll dump that in the bowl with the rest of it. Alright, so we'll stir that in, get everything nicely distributed. And then I'm going to divide this up into 2 parts because I'm not going to have enough room to easily stir the rice in if I don't. Okay. Alright. I'm going to put about half of the rice in the pan. And if there's any clumps that weren't gotten out earlier, just smush them out. This is one of the reasons why it's so much easier to work with cold rice, couple day old rice, than with fresh rice. Alright, plug it in, turn it on to 350, and I will start by adding about half of what I have left in my pint of rabbit broth, using this again in place of oil. And then we'll be adding some soy sauce. I don't know, this is probably about 2 tablespoons. And then some ginger. About 2 teaspoons. And the same on the garlic powder. And this will seem like you're adding an awful lot of seasoning, but it's going to season everything in the bowl, so it's not. Oops. Alright, and then you just want to stir that all around. Now again, if you want to use oil instead of broth on your rice, you can do that. That's the traditional way. I just don't want to use quite that much oil, and the broth keeps the rice from getting too dry. So you could use both if you want to, or you could just use one or the other. Like I said, this is a very forgiving recipe, so you can kind of just do it the way you want. I think the broth instead of the oil just makes it a little bit healthier. Now some people might want to add some sesame oil or some peanut oil to this as well to flavor it, maybe a tablespoon. But I don't think it's necessary with the ginger and the garlic. I think you get your Asian flavors really nicely. Alright, I'm just going to pop that up to 400 degrees. I'm going to let this sizzle a bit. Alright, so it's been going for about 5 minutes. It's warmed completely through. Most of the broth has been absorbed off, so this half of the rice is done, and I'll be transferred to the bowl. And then I'm not going to show me doing the other half of the rice, but it's done exactly the same as this half. Alright, got the first batch of rice, and I'm working in the first half of the vegetables, egg, and rabbit meat. Alright, on to the second half. Alright, my second batch of rice is done, and since my second bowl is not big enough to mix this, I'm mixing it in the frying pan. And then this will go into quart-sized baggies and go into the freezer. And each quart-sized baggie is enough rice for sides for a family of 4. So it's a great way to use up leftovers, and it's a great way to use up eggs and freeze eggs in a way where they're palatable. I know there are other methods of freezing eggs, but I like doing it like this because it really still tastes good. The texture is really still good, and you don't have to worry about the weirdness of raw egg separation in the freezer. So, alright, I hope that was helpful to someone, and thanks for watching.